She didn't know, and not about the jet, not about the change, and definitely not about the plan to send her across the world, alone. Princess Charlotte had been told it was a short flight, a charity visit, back before dinner. But when she arrived at the royal terminal and saw the wrong aircraft on the tarmac, the guard knew something was off. He checked the logs, he checked the route. And what he found was a flight to Los Angeles. No return, no parental sign-off. Just a quiet instruction issued under Queen Camilla's authority to get the girl airborne before anyone could stop it. So when Charlotte started to panic, when Camilla told her to stop being dramatic, when her private security tried to escort the child onto a jet she didn't understand, that's when the Royal Guard screamed. And in the next 30 seconds, he did something no one expected. Now, before we show you exactly what happened, how a Royal Guard shut down the flight and stood between the girl and the crown. Drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Tap like, hit subscribe, and make sure the bell icon's turned on. Because what happened that morning wasn't protocol, it was sabotage, and the one person who stopped it was wearing red. The sun hadn't fully cleared the skyline when Sergeant Rowan Locke arrived at Heathrow's private royal terminal. The air was crisp, the tarmac still damp from an overnight drizzle, and the scent of jet fuel lingered faintly behind the polished glass of the departure suite. Inside, the royal delegation was minimal. Only 3 household aides, a flight logistics officer, and the 10-year-old girl the whole wing had been secured for, Princess Charlotte. She sat near the window, legs crossed at the ankles, her school folder tucked tightly under one arm, and a scarf loosely draped over her coat collar. The folder bulged with crayon drawings, marker-labelled diagrams of trees and animals, gifts she planned to hand-deliver to an environmental charity partnered with a Hollywood studio. Charlotte was going to California for just a few hours. A ceremonial visit, approved in late March, backed by Kensington Palace, coordinated with William and Catherine's staff so she could be flown out, make her appearance and be back home by nightfall. Every step was choreographed, every movement documented, and Sergeant Rowan Locke had been assigned to the custodial detail for her departure. He stood just behind her, motionless in his Coldstream Guard uniform, scarlet tunic buttoned to the collar, black trousers pressed to razor lines, and the tall black bearskin hat casting a regal shadow over the airport stone. His posture was unflinching. His eyes, however, tracked everything, from the clipboard in the logistics officer's hand to the perimeter gate that had just clanked closed behind a fueling truck. Charlotte glanced back and gave a small smile. Rowan returned the gesture with the faintest tilt of his head, the only sign of warmth permitted in uniform. The logistics officer stepped forward with a nod. "All cleared, Sergeant. Final manifest verified. She's on the BAE 146 shuttle. Hangar refit complete 2 weeks ago. Flight crew from the Queen's flight. Very smooth." He hesitated. Though, small note, Her Majesty did request to see the flight plans last night. Rowan's brow shifted almost imperceptibly. "Which Her Majesty?" "Queen Camilla, sir. Looked them over. Didn't sign anything, just read through them. Said she'd ensure it aligned with public scheduling." Nothing flagged. That earned a longer pause. Charlotte was humming quietly now, swinging her heels off the edge of the chair. Rowan gave a firm nod. "Acknowledged." The officer handed him the boarding clipboard. "Here's the aircraft ID if you'd like to cross-reference it. The plane's prepped outside." Rowan turned toward the viewing glass and stopped. The aircraft outside wasn't a BAE 146. It was a sleek, polished Gulfstream, smaller, faster, and most importantly, not listed anywhere in the approved transport documents. His eyes narrowed. That wasn't the plane. Not the one scheduled, not the one cleared. Something was wrong, and the day had just begun. Sergeant Rowan Locke stepped away from the window with the same deliberate precision he brought to ceremonial watch at Windsor. His hand didn't tremble, his voice didn't rise. But the edge in his tone when he turned to the logistics officer sliced clean. "That is not the BAE 146. The officer looked up from his clipboard, blinking. Sorry?" Rowan tapped the manifest once with his gloved finger. Aircraft ID, Bravo Alpha Echo. You've got a Gulfstream G650 parked out there. That's a leased registration, not a Royal Fleet tag. The officer frowned, flipping pages. Hang on. He squinted at the number. That's strange. It's definitely not what we logged. Charlotte, seated nearby, looked up curiously. Is that not the plane I'm supposed to be on? Rowan didn't take his eyes off the officer, but his tone softened just a touch. Not until we confirm everything's correct, ma'am. He turned toward the tarmac. His boots echoed against the polished floor as he crossed to the security door and stepped out onto the side ramp. The cold air met him with a sting, but he ignored it, striding straight toward the waiting aircraft. A member of the ground crew noticed his approach and straightened. "Sergeant?" "Who authorized this equipment switch?" Rowan asked without preamble. The man glanced over his shoulder at the plane. "We were told the updated order came down from the household." "Which office?" "Scheduler's line. Queen Consort's desk." The crewman's voice dropped half a step. "Came in late last night. Bit last minute, honestly." Rowan scanned the aircraft again. The paint gleamed too fresh, the registration numbers too temporary. "Is this aircraft cleared for royal miners?" Not technically, not without escort." "And yet here it is." The man nodded toward the cockpit. "Captain's inside. I think they were told to prep for a transatlantic hop." That stopped Rowan cold. He walked briskly to the base of the stairs, ascended, and ducked into the cabin. The moment he stepped in, his instincts lit up. There were no crew manifests on the entry wall. The fire extinguisher inspection tag had yesterday's date. Handwritten. The captain's seating panel hadn't been fully configured for passenger record. Then came the logbook, tucked inside a seat pouch. He flipped it open and scanned fast. No secondary safety officer logged. Fuel refilled this morning, unscheduled. His throat tightened. He stepped back down the stairs and re-entered the lounge. Charlotte looked up again, smiling nervously. "Is it okay?" Rowan's voice came out firm, flat, final. "Princess Charlotte will not board that aircraft." The air in the room chilled. A murmur ran through the aides. And then, as if summoned by the timing, the security door hissed. Queen Camilla stepped into the lounge, structured coat, gloves on, eyes already narrowed. Queen Camilla entered the VIP lounge with the same air she carried into formal rehearsals at Windsor. Chin lifted, steps crisp, irritation already simmering beneath her polished civility. Two of her personal staff trailed behind her, their pace brisk enough to suggest she hadn't told anyone she was coming. She rarely did. Charlotte straightened in her chair, not in respect, in tension. Rowan didn't move. He stood at his posted angle, body half turned between Camilla and the princess, as regulation demanded. Camilla removed one glove with a short, annoyed tug. "What is the meaning of the delay? Why is the aircraft not boarded?" The logistics officer approached nervously. "Ma'am, there appears to have been a discrepancy." Camilla cut him off. "There is no discrepancy. Hollywood's team arranged a more efficient aircraft. I approved the swap to save time." Rowan spoke before the officer could respond. "Ma'am, the aircraft outside is not cleared for custodial transport of a minor." Camilla's eyes snapped to him. "It's a 2-hour trip," she said sharply. "Not an expedition into a combat zone." Charlotte's shoulders hunched. She'd heard the bite in that tone before, the one meant to belittle the person standing in front of it. Rowan didn't flinch. "The plane lacks valid maintenance sign-off. There's no safety officer listed. The cockpit paperwork is incomplete." Camilla waved a dismissive hand. "Paperwork. Tedious little hurdles you soldiers love to romanticize. The Americans are expecting her." The logistics officer stuttered. "Ma'am, it's actually a 4.5-hour flight to—" Camilla glared him into silence. She turned back to Charlotte with a falsely sweet tone. "Come along, darling. Don't keep the crew waiting." Charlotte froze. Her hand tightened around the folder of drawings. She looked up at Rowan, eyes flicking with unspoken question. He stepped forward, unobtrusively but decisively, placing one polished boot between Camilla and the line toward the tarmac. His voice came out low. "The princess does not board that aircraft." Camilla blinked in disbelief. Then her lips curled with slow, poisonous amusement. "You are challenging me," she said quietly. "In public." Rowan kept his stare steady. "I'm upholding safety protocol." "A soldier lecturing a queen consort," Camilla said, barely above a murmur. "My word must mean nothing these days." Her staff shifted behind her, sensing the tension rise. She tilted her head slightly, voice dripping with a practiced mixture of offence and superiority. "Is this pride, Sergeant? Ego? Or have you simply forgotten your place?" But Rowan's expression didn't waver. "My place," he said evenly, "is behind the princess, not behind an aircraft that was never meant for her." Camilla studied him for a long, cold heartbeat. And for the first time since entering the room, she looked unsure. Only for a moment. Then her eyes hardened again. "Enough theatrics," she said. "She boards. Now." But the child behind Rowan no longer looked ready to move. She looked frightened, and the day was about to turn far darker. Charlotte shifted in her seat, the folder of drawings now clutched tightly against her chest. Her fingers curled around its edges, as if she instinctively sensed something was wrong, something far bigger than a plane. Sergeant Rowan Locke returned from the ramp, holding a small maintenance log, his steps calm but deliberate. He moved like a man who had just confirmed the worst suspicion, that this was no accident. He approached the cockpit door again, this time flagging the pilot directly to a grizzled, experienced captain who wore the expression of someone caught in the middle of a political blunder. "Permission to review flight programming," Rowan said. The captain hesitated. "Sir." Rowan's voice lowered. "Now." The captain turned the screen around. Rowan scanned it once, and his blood chilled. Destination code KLAX. Los Angeles International. Not Heathrow. Not even return routing through secondary RAF logistics. This was a direct one-way, point-to-point booking with no programmed return leg in the system. Rowan looked up. "Who authorized this?" The captain glanced toward the lounge. "We were told the princess was staying in LA for a broadcast initiative, media project, that she'd be returning with a separate team." Rowan's jaw tightened. "And who told you that?" Instruction came through the Queen Consort's scheduler. With urgency, said it was cleared internally. He stepped back from the cockpit. Not just the wrong plane, not just bad paperwork. This was a deliberate logistical override, masked under the pretense of charity, cloaked in public good, and snuck into place at the last possible hour. Rowan re-entered the lounge. Camilla was sitting now, legs crossed neatly, coat pristine, as if this were all beneath her. When he held the flight log up in front of her, she didn't even blink. "This aircraft," Rowan said quietly, "was programmed for Los Angeles." Camilla raised an eyebrow. "Yes. You diverted a royal minor to a foreign continent without her parents' consent." She smiled, not warmly, but as if indulging a tired schoolboy. "It's a global charity broadcast, a short studio taping, some light press. It's harmless." Rowan didn't respond. Camilla added, voice lower now, silk wrapping steel. "Hollywood asked for her directly. This is a generation-defining moment, a visual campaign. Exposure she'll never get through dusty British ceremonies." "Was the princess informed?" Rowan asked. Camilla's eyes sparkled. "She didn't need to be. Some opportunities don't require parental committees." Behind Rowan, Charlotte froze. Rowan stepped between them again, the flight log still in hand. "This is a custodial breach." Camilla leaned in, her voice almost a hiss. "Mind your tone, soldier." But Rowan didn't flinch, because this wasn't about paperwork anymore. This was about power. And he had just seen exactly how far she was willing to go. Charlotte's breathing changed. It was subtle at first, a quiet, uneven rise and fall beneath the wool of her coat, her fingers twitching around the edges of her folder. Then it broke. A shallow gasp slipped through her lips, barely audible, but enough to pull Rowan's focus instantly back toward her. She wasn't crying, not yet, but her small frame had gone rigid, her shoulders drawn up and inward, lips pressed into a pale, trembling line. "I don't want to go that far," she whispered. "Mum said she'd see me tonight." Rowan moved to kneel in front of her, lowering himself with the same practiced control he'd used to treat wounded Marines in Helmand. His ceremonial bearskin loomed above her like a shield, casting a tall shadow across the white-tiled floor. "You're not going anywhere you're not comfortable with, ma'am," he said gently. "Look at me. Breathe with me." Charlotte's wide eyes flicked up. Her lashes were wet. She nodded or tried to, but it was already too late. Camilla's voice cut across the room like a slap. "Oh, for heaven's sake, she's being dramatic." Everyone froze. Even the logistics officer stopped mid-step, unsure whether to speak or leave. Charlotte flinched visibly. Her breathing grew quicker, more shallow, her chest pulling tight as her fingers clenched into fists at her collarbone. I can't." "She's panicking," Rowan said sharply, not turning his head. "She needs air and distance, not pressure." Camilla stood up, brushing off her coat like dust had landed on it. "Children fly alone all the time. Stop treating her like a porcelain doll." Rowan rose to his full height, slow, unshaking. He positioned himself fully between Charlotte and the Queen Consort, blocking the line of sight with his broad shoulders and rigid uniform frame. "You caused this," he said flatly. Camilla blinked. "Excuse me?" She trusted her surroundings, her schedule, her safety, and you rewrote it without a word. Camilla stepped forward. "Move." "I won't," Rowan said. "I'm her grandmother." "No, you're not her guardian." The air dropped a degree. Charlotte's breathing came in staccato gasps now, hands pressed flat to her chest, eyes glassy, her voice a whisper. "Please, I don't want to go to America." Camilla narrowed her eyes. "You're making a spectacle of this." Rowan's voice came out like gravel dragged across steel. "And you're turning a scared child into a liability." The aide in the corner looked ready to intervene, but hesitated, unsure whose orders held weight now. Camilla's fury simmered beneath her skin. Her heel clicked once against the floor. "Either you step aside, or I'll have someone move her." Charlotte whimpered softly, shrinking further into the chair. And Rowan. He didn't just stay standing, he braced. Because whatever happened next, and he wasn't letting her pass. Camilla didn't retreat. She stepped closer, eyes locked on Rowan like a chess piece moving toward its final square. "Escort her to the aircraft," she snapped at the airport coordinator. "She's delaying a global charity broadcast." The man froze mid-step, caught between royal command and the sharp edge of protocol. His gaze darted from Camilla to Rowan, unsure who held precedence. Before he could move, Camilla turned to her private security. 2 plainclothes officers posted by the lounge door. "You heard me. Take the princess aboard." Charlotte's breath caught audibly. One of the men took a step forward. That was the mistake. Rowan moved, not with ceremony, not with the calm restraint he'd carried all morning. He stepped directly in front of Charlotte, one hand raised, voice tearing through the marble-panelled lounge like a gunshot. "Stay! Back!" Everyone stopped. Even Camilla blinked. Even the plane outside seemed to freeze. It was the first time in years Rowan Locke had raised his voice in uniform. The shout didn't echo, it detonated, reverberating through the silence that followed, like a warning bell no one had ever expected to hear from a guard. Charlotte went still. Camilla's mouth opened slightly in shock. "You screamed at me," she said, as if insulted more by the volume than the defiance. Rowan didn't lower his hand. "I screamed at the threat you sent toward a terrified child." His voice was raw now, layered with something colder than rage, a veteran's fury trained to hit precisely where it mattered. Camilla advanced a step, voice low and venomous. "You are dangerously out of line." "You gave an instruction," Rowan said, "to forcefully board a minor, without parental clearance, without custodial authorization, on a flight that was tampered with." Camilla looked as if she'd been slapped. Rowan's hand trembled slightly, not from fear, from restraint. He dropped it slowly to his side, unclenching his fist with effort. His breath came hard, through his nose. Then, quieter. "Try that again, ma'am, and I will file the custodial breach myself, by name, with full audio." Camilla's eyes narrowed. "You've lost your mind." Rowan's reply came instantly. "No, ma'am. I've finally had enough." Charlotte remained crouched behind him, her small hand still clutching the edge of her folder. Her lips moved slightly, like she was trying to count breaths. Rowan didn't turn around, but he could feel the stillness in her. Not panic now, just fragile quiet, watching everything, understanding more than any 10-year-old ever should have to. Camilla stood frozen, not defeated, but cornered. She opened her mouth to speak, and then a young voice spoke from behind the reception desk. "Ma'am, I think you should see this flight note." The person who said it wasn't security. It was a crew technician, and the next sentence he spoke would change everything. The voice came again, steadier now, louder. "Ma'am, I think you should hear this." Everyone turned. A young ground crew engineer stood just past the reception desk, headset around his neck, high-vis vest slightly crooked. He looked like he hadn't meant to speak, like the words had escaped him before he could decide whether it was worth it. But now that he had the room's attention, there was no pulling back. Camilla's expression hardened. "And you are?" He swallowed once. "Crew technician, assigned to the West Ramp. I overheard something this morning about the flight." Rowan's gaze didn't leave him. "Go on." The engineer glanced nervously at Charlotte, then at Camilla, then finally locked eyes with Rowan, choosing. "About 2 hours ago, just before the Gulfstream was brought around, I heard Her Majesty's scheduler on the comms with a studio contact," he said. "She said, quote, 'Don't tell William, he'll shut it down. She'll be in the air before anyone notices.'" Silence fell like a dropped blade. Camilla didn't speak. The man added quietly, "They thought the call was muted. It wasn't." Charlotte let out a soft noise, not quite a sob, not quite a word. She backed a step behind Rowan, her hand clutching the hem of his uniform. Camilla's jaw tightened. "You misunderstood. That was a scheduling note. Nothing more." The crewman shook his head. "She said it twice." Rowan looked at Camilla. "You tried to get her airborne before her parents could stop it." Camilla's voice, when it returned, was brittle. It was for her image, a soft launch into international recognition. Hollywood sees the crown as dated. This was an olive branch. She would have been surrounded by staff, safe. "You didn't ask her," Rowan said flatly. "She's a child. They don't understand opportunity." "No," Rowan said. "They understand when someone's lying to them. That's why she's shaking." Camilla turned on him. "You have no authority to interrogate me." "I didn't," Rowan replied. "But you created a situation so unsafe, so reckless and so deceptive that even airport personnel felt the need to speak out." Charlotte's breathing had steadied, but her eyes were red, her voice barely audible. "I thought I was going to be home by dinner." Rowan didn't look back. He just said, "You will be, ma'am." Camilla stood motionless, her mouth open as if searching for some phrase that would bring the room back under her command. But none came. And then, from beyond the corridor glass, footsteps. 2 sets, sharp, royal. Camilla paled. Rowan didn't turn. He didn't need to, because even before the doors opened, he knew exactly who was coming, and he knew what came next. The doors to the VIP terminal hissed open, and the atmosphere shifted before the sound had even finished echoing. Prince William entered first, tall, fast and furious. His navy coat swept behind him, his pace hard enough to make even the security staff step back. Every line of his body radiated control, barely. Behind him came Catherine. No coat, no entourage, no smile. Just the storm-beaten stillness of a mother walking toward her child. William's voice cracked across the lounge like a whip. "Where is my daughter?" Charlotte was already running. Rowan stepped aside just far enough to let her pass. Her shoes slapped lightly against the stone, and she collided into her father's chest like an arrow loosed from a bow. William dropped instantly to one knee. "I'm here," he said. "I'm here, darling." Charlotte didn't speak. She just clung to him, face buried in the collar of his coat, shoulders still twitching from the aftermath. Catherine reached them seconds later, folding herself around both of them, eyes locked on her daughter's face, with a fierceness that needed no words. William looked up, first at Charlotte, then slowly, deliberately at Rowan. "What happened?" Rowan didn't hesitate. "Unauthorized flight diversion, sir. Destination changed without parental consent. Custodial chain broken. Attempted departure imminent." William's face darkened. Then he turned and saw Camilla. She hadn't moved. He took one step forward. "You authorized an international diversion for a minor without informing her parents?" Camilla's voice was silk-lined steel. "It was for a good cause. A scheduled appearance, exposure on a global platform." "You tampered with her location log," Rowan added quietly. "Had a pilot prep a transatlantic route. Removed the return leg." Camilla's mouth snapped shut. William's eyes didn't blink. "You tried to take her out of the country without telling us." "It was a media opportunity." He raised a hand. Camilla stopped speaking. He turned to a nearby security officer. "Escort the Queen Consort back to Windsor. Remove her aviation clearance effective immediately. All fleets, all terminals. I don't care whose scheduler signed what." The room went still. Camilla's expression cracked just slightly. "You can't be serious." "I am," William said, "and I haven't even started." Two security personnel approached. Quiet, respectful, firm. Camilla didn't argue, not loudly, but her exit carried fury in every clipped step. William turned back to Rowan. "Everything you saw, you write it. Full report, today." "Yes, sir." He crouched again, gently prying Charlotte's arms loose. "Sweetheart, Mummy's here now. You're safe." Charlotte nodded through a final broken breath. Rowan stepped back to his post, silent, still. But his eyes never left the door Camilla had walked through, because even gone, she wasn't finished, and neither was he. The VIP suite was quiet now, not the usual quiet of formality, the kind of silence that follows a slammed door when everyone's breath is held just a second too long. Charlotte sat curled in the corner of the lounge, Catherine beside her, one arm wrapped securely around her daughter's shoulders. Her coat had been removed, scarf loosened, shoes kicked aside without a thought. She looked smaller now, not like a princess, not like an heir, just a child who had come far too close to being taken away from everything familiar. William knelt beside them. His voice was low, careful, stripped of the usual public tone. "You're safe now. No one's taking you anywhere without us. Not ever." Charlotte nodded against her mother's shoulder, but didn't speak. A flight medic entered quietly, summoned on protocol. Catherine gave a quick nod. The woman approached without fanfare, crouched beside the bench, and began her examination with the gentle professionalism of someone used to frightened children. Across the room, Sergeant Rowan Locke stood near the side window watching the tarmac. His posture had relaxed by a degree, but he hadn't sat down. He hadn't left the space between Charlotte and that aircraft. He hadn't been ordered to stay. He simply hadn't stopped. William rose slowly and walked over. "Sergeant?" Rowan turned. "Sir?" "You kept her safe," William said. "Again." Rowan's tone was flat. "Just my duty." "No," William said, firmer now. "Duty would have meant silence. You raised your voice. You intervened. You stood between a crown and a child. And today that wasn't just brave. That was necessary." Rowan didn't reply. He didn't need to. They both understood what had nearly happened, and how close it came to slipping through undetected, wrapped in paperwork and press releases. William looked toward the lounge entrance, where two senior aides were reviewing security footage and compiling documents. "Her clearance is being pulled as we speak," he said. "No more loopholes, no more scheduler tricks." Rowan gave a single nod. William turned back toward his family. "The flight's cancelled. We'll reschedule it. Or maybe we won't. Hollywood will survive." At the bench, Catherine helped Charlotte ease her shoes back on. The girl looked steadier now, face pale, eyes red, but no longer panicked. Just tired. Rowan returned to the glass, watching as the original charter, the proper royal shuttle, was towed back into hangar. Quiet efficiency, no press, no announcement, just a sealed record that would never reach the public. That was how most things worked here, but not today. Because today someone had raised their voice, and that sound still echoed through every corridor. The wind-swept glass door of the terminal slid open one final time, and Charlotte reappeared, slower now, coat back on, scarf neatly tied, but no folder in her hands. That had been left behind, folded drawings still inside. Her mother walked beside her, one hand resting lightly between her shoulder blades. Sergeant Rowan Locke stood upright near the far end of the lounge, where the marble floor met the wall of glass facing the airstrip. His bearskin hat remained in place. His boots gleamed despite the scuff near the toe. He hadn't moved more than 10 paces in the last hour. As they approached, Charlotte paused. She looked up at her mother, then gently stepped forward alone. "Sergeant," she said softly. Rowan turned fully toward her, posture still firm, but gaze lowered to meet her level. "Ma'am," he acknowledged, voice even. She hesitated, glanced down at her own feet, then back up. "Thank you for shouting." The words came out small but clear. Rowan blinked once. "I wasn't shouting at you, ma'am," he said. "I was shouting so no one could take you away." Charlotte gave the smallest nod, not ceremonial, not trained, just human. Behind her, Catherine waited in still silence, arms folded loosely, watching the exchange with something closer to reverence than supervision. Charlotte stepped back to her mother's side, and the two of them continued toward the private car, waiting to take them back to Windsor. The vehicle was unmarked. The windows were darkened, but the look on Charlotte's face as she climbed inside held something that hadn't been there earlier. Not just calm, but certainty. The family had decided not to proceed with the Hollywood visit at all. No stand-ins, no rescheduling. The story would never be told. At least, not out there. But inside this lounge, inside this moment, it was already written. Rowan turned back toward the window as the car pulled away. The plane that had been readied for the transatlantic flight now sat dormant at the edge of the tarmac. Flight plan voided, clearance revoked. Ground crew were already unhooking the cables. His shoulders remained square, his eyes steady, but something in his jaw finally eased. He had not been ordered to return to post, but he stood anyway, because the job wasn't just about pageantry or position. It was about one truth, the same one they drilled into him years ago, long before Windsor and Crimson Tunics. No one touches the child, and if they try, you scream, even if you wear red, even if they wear a crown, even if they tell you to stand down, because some uniforms are made for silence, and some days they're made to roar. Was the guard right to scream when Camilla's men approached Charlotte? Should a royal child ever be taken abroad without both parents knowing? And what do you think Camilla's real motive was here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. Tap like, hit subscribe, and make sure the bell icon's turned on so you never miss a Royal Guard story. Share this video, and while our other stories appear on your screen, pick one and keep watching. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, with a brand new story.